and I will share the links, and we can get started.
All right.
So halfway through the week, I'm guessing you've been busy. You do look tired.
Very. It's still Wednesday. Oh my goodness. How's thing on your side?
Good. I know it's Wednesday morning by me, and
Is it still snowing?
no, but there is some snow on the ground. But it's just been a very, very busy weekend and month, frankly. A lot of stuff
Yeah.
going on, and let's see. I think we are almost ready. We are live. We
Everything
do
okay?
have people in the group. Yep, six
How many?
people in. It's starting to populate. Good morning, everybody.
How's your credit card? Everything
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, everything is okay. Did a new one did come in the mail. Um, yes. Here we go. Good morning. Good morning, Joe. Morning, everybody. How's the sound, by
Good
the way?
morning.
Can you guys hear Mike okay?
Hello. Good morning. You guys hear me?
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right.
All right, so I know this is our second go around, but we're going to pretend like it's our first. And I am
No, no,
really
no.
excited. I am
Let's just be
excited.
honest.
Oh,
Revenge.
yeah. I am really excited and honored to be able to talk with you, Mike. Mike is the CEO and co-founder of Quoine, CoinX, the exchange's cryptos, CoinX, which is now being rebranded to Liquid in the future, correct? Very
That is
exciting.
correct.
The Cash token. And we're going to get right into it. I, uh, I would be remiss to not mention that this is our second time meeting. The first time I accidentally shared my credit card info and we had to put that on hold. But one thing that I did take away from that meeting with Mike is he has exceptional executive presence. I mean, you really handled that well. and, and to be serious, though, when I look at crypto projects, the first thing I look at is what's the leadership, who's leading these
Mm.
projects, and in the past, some of the ones that I was really excited about was Neo of Da Hong Fei. I was really impressed by him. Sunny Liu of Ven and Larimer of EOS. And then when I started to research the Cash token and your exchanges, we did in-depth analysis of the team. And I must say that you really impressed me watching your AMAs and just kind of your leadership style. I think is outstanding. I really like how you engage with the community. And that being said, are there any cryptos in the space that you like, for instance, or projects that you're interested in?
Well, so that's a really good question, right? So because we operate a regulated exchange, and you just can't get away with being young and ambitious and ideology driven because we are operating a financial service,
Right.
and it's in the crypto space. And as you grow, and regulators will come in, local authorities will come in, and tax authorities will come in, right? So you need to have a certain level and experience to be a financial service, regardless if it's crypto or payments or any of these, right? So that's why I think it's a little different where you just can't be another service utilizing the blockchain, right? So there's a little bit of a difference there. That said, for example, we recently worked with GBX,
Yes.
right? This is the Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange. It's a 100% subsidiary of the Gibraltar Stock Exchange. I think their management is fantastic,
Mm,
right? Also, it's a team of experienced people. As you know, Gibraltar is a self-governing uh, government under the UK, and they look at blockchain and DLT and crypto as the next innovation, the next disruptive technology to to spur their economy. And starting with Nick and the people there is just top tier, world class.
yeah. So
And
speaking
that was
of, oh,
yeah,
sorry.
and that was the reason we decided to um, partner with, and also we were fortunate and honored to take on their Rock token and sell it on our platform as well.
Outstanding. So you did mention that Gibraltar did they see crypto as the future, and the next frontier in technology, finance, all these things. Like a lot of us believe, and clearly around when you founded CoinX or Quoine, you seem to have had a similar aha moment where you decided, this is something I want to really start to do now and be a leader and an innovator in this space. What was there a specific moment where where it just clicked for you, or what did that look like, the forming of Coin?
Yeah, so it was a series of events that led to it, right? So it wasn't this one thing suddenly I woke up and I knew I had to be part of, but it was a series of events. So the first time and it was only Bitcoin then. There was no Ethereum. It wasn't even about the blockchain. It was the Bitcoin itself. And
Right.
this was 2010. So a year after the Satoshi white paper came out. The first wave of Bitcoin came in Silicon Valley, right? So they
Right.
were like visionaries and people who were talking about Bitcoin as the internet of money, that it was the digital cash. And that was in 2010. And immediately it intrigued me, but there was no place to buy, right? And also, smartphones were not that everybody didn't have a smartphone then. So you would really have to go to like these meetups or pubs and try to buy Bitcoin there. And obviously, it wasn't that easy. So unfortunately, in hindsight, I should have bought it then, but I didn't have that opportunity. So that was 2010. And then I was a VC then, but then I joined SoftBank. So I was in charge. I was in charge of SoftBank's Asia operations, investments, joint ventures, and partnerships. And obviously, SoftBank, like for example, in the U.S., acquired Sprint, ARM, all the investments in India, and SoftBank is a mobile internet and also slash investment conglomerate. And
Right.
being in Asia, you knew that the smartphone and mobile internet was exploding. Right now, this is like 2013, and this was when the second wave of Bitcoin really came through, and that was when one Bitcoin was $1,000, and China was dominating the global transaction volume, and this was 2013, right? And obviously, living in Singapore and traveling to all these Asian countries where you had to exchange to national currency, like the Philippine peso, the Indonesia rupiah, the Malaysian ringgit. Everywhere you go, you had to have these local currencies, and it was a hassle, right? There was no like unified, consistent token or currency out there, so it was a pain because I was traveling to all these countries. And that was the moment when I knew that Bitcoin and the digital future was going to come, and your smartphone and the apps and the mobile wallet, that was the future, right? So when you go to like Southeast Asia, 50%, 60% of the population still don't have a bank or they're underbanked.
Right.
But everybody had a smartphone by 2013, 14, right? So that's when I knew that the future of finance, the future of financial services was actually going to be all digital. And Bitcoin was the mean to be that unified, potentially borderless cryptocurrency, right? And that's when I knew, that it was the future. But then again, I wanted to buy Bitcoin, but no place to buy. Mount Gox was there, but when you look at Reddit and social media, they were already having difficulties on withdrawals and payments and all these things. So there was no credible place to buy Bitcoin at the time in Asia. Coinbase just started in the US, right? So that's when I met my co-founder, who was also in Singapore at the time, and he was in charge of Credit Suisse's FICC, which is the fixed income currency and commodity, and he was a CTO of that department. And that's when we knew that. So he built like currency exchanges, commodity exchanges, bond exchanges, and that's when we connected. And we decided that if there's no credible exchange built by bankers or people in the financial industry, we might as well start it. So I was on the business side, he was on the tech side, and we immediately at that time knew that it's time to start our own business.
Oh, it's really, really interesting. And I'm glad we got to talk a little of things like these are my own selfish questions because I really looking forward to hear your answers. But truth be told, there are many questions about the Qash token and Liquid and the World Book that I don't want to wait any longer. I want to give the people what they want. So are you ready to get really into the nitty gritty of why I think and you think Qash is going to be such a huge player in the crypto space? All right, so let's get forward. And
All right.
first off, World Book. I know you were scheduled for an April 6th or the first week of April beta launch. Are we still on track for that? And how's that
Yeah,
looking?
so it's going to be more on like the behind the
Right.
scenes, right? So there's many elements that consist the World Book, and the biggest one is the new matching engine that does multi-market orders, right?
Right.
So this is where we're already connected to over 17 exchanges,
Hmm.
right?
And
So we are connected.
can you tell us any of those exchanges that you're connected to, or is that like NDA?
Yeah, so I'll rather try to keep it, but we are connected to three exchanges in the U.S.,
Hmm.
two in Europe, and then there's others that are scattered, like offshore entities, right?
Got it.
That said, when you look at counterparty risk, there's maybe a handful of exchanges that you would want to put the liquid deposit there, right?
Right.
So the amount of money, the capital that we raised, there's counterparty risk, there's multiple risks that you want to mitigate. So even if you're connected with 17 exchanges, that doesn't mean you're going to put these deposits as liquidity, right? But we are already connected to these exchanges, and every exchange has a different API, different set of. There's no global guideline or common API for cryptocurrency exchanges, right? So each one you need to tailor towards each exchange. But that's more of the easier part. The part that's important is now you're making sure that you route the right way. When orders come in, you make sure that you bring in the right liquidity and you put it in as a multi-market order, right? So if someone living in Singapore will be able to trade in their own base or their own currency, which is Singapore dollar, but can tap into the, for example, Ethereum Euro currency pair seamlessly, and that's where all the hidden technology comes in. And it is still in, so it's next week, right? End of next week, and that's when our MMO will go live, and that's the first part of the World Book.
Okay. Wow,
Actually, I mean, maybe our chief trading officer Andre mentioned before, but in limited currencies, we've already turned it on, right?
ah,
So actually, about a week and a half ago, we've
I
turned it
did read
on
that.
in
Yes.
limited internal orders. So it's already there. We're testing it. So it will be April 6th. But from a visual perspective, you probably won't notice that much.
Oh, really interesting stuff. The
Yeah.
next major to me change is the combination of Cryptos and CoinEx into Liquid platform. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And also a question of my own. When you do rebrand to Liquid, I believe this is maybe May or June of this year. Do you have any intention to change the token, the Qash token? Will it be the Liquid token, or are you going to keep it as Qash?
We're going to keep it as Qash,
Okay.
right? So there were discussions around should we change it to Liquid, but we thought it would be good to just keep it as Qash. So that will stay as is. We're looking at multiple ways to increase the utility of our Qash token and also to make it more attractive, but that's something we can discuss later. But we are saying that it's going to be sometime end of May or June. We're trying to be a little bit more aggressive there. But right now, as you know, as a startup, having an ICO platform or a crypto only exchange in cryptos, and then the fiat crypto exchange called Coinex, and more for this global liquidity world book Liquid, there was no reason to have all of these three brands. So it made sense because Liquid is the world book that connects all these exchanges. So we're going to eat our own dog food, and we're going to combine our Coinex cryptos and Liquid all into Liquid. And based on which demographic or which geography you come from, it's all going to be policy based, right? So if you're from China, you won't be able to participate in ICOs, right? If you're not KYC cleared, you can't do these things. Or if you're from a sanctioned country, there's certain things you can't do. So all of those things will be part of our policy, but it's going to be one unified platform that starts from ICO self-service to listing and also the liquidity that comes up all the way.
Now, when I think of ICO as in conjunction with exchanges or cooperation, I have to be reminded of Binance. I remember I signed up for Binance when they were relatively new. I think this was maybe August of last year. And I watched their volume ramp up tremendously, as well as the value of their BNB token, specifically when they did the ICO for Tron. Tron at the time had tremendous demand, and
Yes.
people were paying for the Tron ICO in BNB token. What do you think of that model? Is that something similar that you guys will be doing? And can you elaborate a little bit on the ICO self-service platform that you provide?
Yeah, we would love to show you a demo because it's essentially it's almost there, right? And we're gonna launch this as a token issuer. You will be able to tap into our KYC cleared customer base who are eager to participate in ICO and then start trading, right? So if you're a token issuer and you have your white paper, there's going to be some credentials that we're going to ask for: white paper, your team, your smart contract, all of these things. You put those things in, and boom, we have a template that will immediately create your entire ICO into one landing page within cryptos, which is now going to be Liquid. And that's where all of our KYC cleared customers or traders will be able to participate, and you can decide how much discount you want to give, how long you want to do the ICO, and then you can decide when you want to have it listed as well. So all of these things, and then you send for approval, and we have our own approval committee now, which will look at the legality, look at all the from an exchange perspective, and then you can launch your ICO.
Wow. Yeah, but
We want to make it frictionless as possible.
any projection as to when you will be launching your first ICO from a timing perspective? How far away are we from doing that?
Yeah, so we're just today we're having this internal discussion. Should we wait for the Liquid platform to be ready to have it there, or if there's still about 2 months to go, should we do the beta launch on cryptos? Right? I think it's better as to launch it on cryptos, right? Because you always want to improve your platform and your product, and like maybe launching it as a beta and have a few token issuers willing to work with us to do an ICO using this ICO platform, and then we migrate all of that into Liquid as well. But so if we're going to go that route, it should be less than a month.
Oh wow. So
Yeah, I mean, we did a full like production grade demo today. It's pretty amazing.
I'm really excited to see that. And with that last question, I did bring up Binance. I think currently they do hold the top volume, and I know that for people like me, and I'm sure in the chat, I know in the past there were discussions of will Binance list Cash token and will Cash list the BNB token, and there were all sorts of rumors. It's hard to tell what really transpired there or what was true and what isn't. But I did catch your chief of trade. It was Andre, right, who did the AMA, and he said from what he was saying about Binance, it didn't seem like a partnership was imminent. And I know that perhaps you can't discuss these things, but I would like to hear your thoughts on Binance's recent announcements, because they've been grabbing the headlines lately with their decentralized exchange component that they're adding, their US dollar pairings, as well as receiving some sort of communication from Japanese regulation bodies. So I know this is a minefield for you, but I'd like to see if you can comment on your thoughts on any of these announcements or news.
Of course, of course. So let's step back, right? And one thing I do like your listeners and your audience is when you look for an exchange somewhere that you're willing to trust that service with your private keys or your asset, right? You want to make sure that that company at least shows who they are, where they're located, what kind of licenses or what jurisdiction, team picture, all of these things, right? When an exchange or a platform is not able to disclose that, what kind of signal does that exert, like trust and safety to you, right? So
Right. No.
that's something everybody should look into prior to depositing or wiring your fiat or crypto, right? So again, because as a regulated exchange, we disclose all of those, right? We make sure that when something happens, it's our responsibilities. We worked with the government, we worked with the regulators and all these things. So, and also because of that, we do full KYC of all of our customers, and that is mandated, and also customer asset segregation, all of these things, which is part of a regulated exchange. So when you don't do that, when you are an offshore company where you don't disclose any of these things, and suddenly within 6 months, you go from zero to so any company that grows too fast, too quickly, right? Consciously or unconsciously, you take shortcuts, right? You don't do some of the things that you normally should, or as a financial service where you need to strengthen your foundation, you don't, right? So we take an approach of, rather than spending money on marketing or affiliate and all these things, let's make sure that our platform is good. We have a strong foundation. We have a great security chief information security officer. We have governance. So that's how we are, right? And when other exchanges don't do that because they're just offshore, or they don't do it by they take those calculated risk, I think the users should make sure that they're taking on that responsibility as well, right? So, but when we met Binance, it was more around September, October timeframe. They actually participated in our ICO. So they have our Cash token, right? And at the time, they said they wanted to list it. So that was my understanding, right? And since then, I don't think they've done it, and it's actually out of our control. And I think what they actually want is they want their Binance token to be listed in Japan, which obviously, due to regulation, because they don't disclose any of their information, and every token needs to be approved by the Japan government or the Japan FSA. It's almost impossible, right? And they got a sanction letter. They got a warning that they cannot serve Japanese customers, right? But their office was in Japan. They were hiring in Japan, and their second largest customer base was Japanese, right? So obviously, I mean, they were right.
I wasn't
There's
aware of
no
that
way.
actually. Oh, I didn't realize they had that big of a Japanese market. Wow.
Well, so that's they were aggressively marketing in Japan, and and that's why the government specifically mentioned that company, sent a warning saying that they can take criminal charges, right? So it's not just a say hello type of letter that they received. So that's where we are, and there's no way that kind of a token will be able to be approved in Japan, right? So it's a little unfortunate, but it is what it is, and this is where you know who you really are, right? Do you want to comply with the government? Do you want to work with the regulators? Do you want to go to another offshore place? Do you want to go to like continue to be a nomad and don't disclose where you are? It shows your character,
Hmm.
right? But
So,
it's not only Binance. There's a lot of offshore exchanges who take that approach.
yeah,
So I think it's more of trader beware.
yeah. So that being said, I mean, based off of your response, it would seem that, and also the fact that Binance was targeting Japanese market, it would seem that you were more in competition at this point. And I guess this question, I'd like to know the answer. When you're partnering with other exchanges for the World Book, what's the other exchange or the other exchanges that you're? What's their incentive to partner with you?
Yeah, so it
Like,
actually
what do they
goes
have to
worse.
gain?
Yeah, they get more flow,
More flow.
right? So actually, for example, in the FX market, there's these liquidity providers, and the providers are actually these global banks or mega banks, right? For example, if you are an online retail FX, you work with banks who will give you the best bid ask for example, US dollar in JPY. And you get all these liquidity partners, you combine them and you provide your customers the tightest spread. So this is how retail FX works. And they work with all these global financial institutions like a Citibank, like JP Morgan, and get all these feeds. In the crypto world, none of these existing financial institutions can provide that liquidity. So exchanges need to work together. Obviously, there's market makers, there are these hedge funds, liquidity providers who are coming in, but that's not enough. So exchanges need to work together. And when we need liquidity, we will tap into theirs. When they need liquidity, they will tap into us, right? And like that, that's how like it's like an interbank in the banking world. You work with other banks when you need liquidity, right? You also work with the central bank. But for crypto, because it's decentralized, there's no central governing place where you can tap into liquidity. You work with other exchanges,
Oh,
right? So, for
that's a great
example,
answer.
Japanese exchanges will tap into us for liquidity. We will also connect with global exchanges and bring their liquidity. So, when we look at it, we become not only we together with these exchanges, we become together the largest liquidity.
Very interesting. Um,
Yeah.
Speaking of which, although Binance had announced that they were they will be doing U.S. dollar pairings. Um, I know Bittrex is as well is also going to do fiat
Mm.
trading, and in America and I guess globally, Robinhood is, an app that's very popular for stock trading that is now starting to dabble in multiple states in America in cryptocurrency. And I remember when they first launched, I think they got about 2 million new users in a span of a
Mm.
few days. So, do, do you believe that more exchanges going this route, or just more competition as far as cryptocurrency versus fiat trading? Where does Liquid play into that, and what are your thoughts on the competition out there, and Is it something that you're concerned about? Yeah.
So in an ideal world, we want to be we don't need to be in the B2C space, right? So I look at a world where your bank or your online brokerage or your online FX company or your PayPal wallet or even your Robinhood or eToro or any of these mobile investment platforms, they will start offering crypto because crypto is the future and the token economy is going to come, right? So all of these providers who already have an existing user base, they will offer multi-asset, right? They will offer equities, they will offer FX, they will offer crypto. Then again, it boils down to where do you get that liquidity, right? So that's where we want to be the exchange of exchanges. We want to work for all these multi-asset trading platforms, even from an ATM, from you want to buy from a convenience store, you want to buy from all these places. They all need to tap into liquidity, and that's where we want to. That's where we want to work with. So we don't look at any of these OTCs to private trading services to exchanges. We don't look at them as competitors. We look at them as potential partners if they're willing to dance, right? There are some exchanges who say, "Hey, we're entitled. We feel we have the right to play. We don't need to work with anyone. Screw you." I mean, obviously, it needs to be mutual. But if you're mutual, I mean, that's how the ecosystem expands. So we want to work with everybody, right? But we don't want to work with people who cut corners. We don't want to work with people who don't respect regulators and who don't look at security as one of their most important elements. So obviously, it's not like we can work with every platform out there. We will work with the ones that are lower risk on counterparty, that looks at regulation. They're pro-regulation. They look at security as one of the most important things. So there is going to be a natural selection, a cluster of exchanges that will be working together.
So now that we've really covered a lot of the high level stuff, being in this space and being a cryptocurrency investor and trader, I like to think that I have a good handle on what the crowd wants and what they're looking for. And a lot of people are speculators. And I can tell that by the type of questions that I get in regards to Qash. People don't necessarily understand the token. So I want to kind of capture what I feel to be the main questions regarding this token, and if we can get these answered, I think people will really get a better understanding of what's going to happen in the future as far as cash and liquid. So one of the things that I've even noticed myself and that I hear a lot is the user friendly the UI of your platform is not what most people that I trade with are used to. I think like Binance, for instance, or KuCoin, they have a pretty user-friendly experience, and it's familiar. And going from one to the other, it's not a big change. And then when people sign on to cryptos, it does have some really nice features, but it's very different from typical exchanges that people are using.
Yeah.
Do you have plans to improve that, change that, give them something that they're more comfortable with, or is it this is the new look and get used to us?
Yeah. So you brought up one of the most important points, right? Where first and foremost, I think the two most important things that we focus right now, and that's why I think user experience, user interface kind of took a back seat, is we are working with regulators right now, and that's where we're focusing on. And it's not trivial. They ask for all these things, and new things always come from these regulators, right? And you need to do that across different jurisdictions. So we have a full team that works on regulators and compliance and governance, and also it's the audit season right now. So we're one of the few exchanges that I'm going to share it here, but Deloitte is our auditor, right? So they audit not our own, not only our financials, but they audit our crypto segregation, right? So based on the Japan guideline, we use Deloitte as our auditor for the crypto side as well. So it's the audit season right now. So that's the most important thing. The second important thing that we're working on is security, right? At a network level, product level, we cannot have another coin check moment or even a Binance moment where millions of dollars are stolen, right? So we want to make sure that even if your ID and passwords are stolen, even if someone takes over your account, that at an operational level, we can make sure that your crypto assets are safe, right? So we're putting in this new Iron Shield where it's really rare for a user to change their password and their two-factor at the same time, right? But one of the things that you find out is when someone like steals your ID or password or email and other credentials, they want to change all of it, right? So we want to make sure that if you change any of the three credentials, either your email, your password, or your 2FA, you cannot change the other one for a week, right? So we have a cooling period, right? So what a typical hacker will do if they take over your account is change your password and then change the two-factor, right? So these things, we're implement each of these things, and that's only on the customer side, right? But we also whitelist the withdrawal addresses. We do pen tests. All these things is what we put our effort in. And our user experience and user interface took a back seat, right? So we haven't really optimized. We haven't looked at the customer journey from sign up, registration, to the first login, to how to start trading, instructions, Q&A, all of these things. It hasn't been that. I mean, it hasn't been there. So we will now, with the regulation side kind of under control and the security side now having a full, so we brought in a new CISO, right? And it's our Chief Information Security Officer who just started a week ago. He worked for like the Department of Homeland Security. He also worked for the NSA. He worked in Washington D.C. and the most recent was he was head and in charge of cybersecurity for national nuclear energy, right? So these are like nuclear power plants and all these things where he was in charge of the cybersecurity side, right? So we're bringing in all these guys because we believe that as an exchange, we have a big target, right? Everyone will know that compromise our wallets, they can get that customer keys and take it away, right? So obviously we've been focusing on regulation and security, but only now with our new upcoming Liquid platform, will we be making improvements on the user experience. So it's going to come, and I think within the next, and it's not only like one revamp, it's going to be a continuous improvement, right? So anywhere from the next 6 months to a year, I think we'll have one of the best user experiences in the world. That's what I'm
looking forward to it. The other question I get is people when they ask me about Qash token, they say, "What is that BNB for? What's that exchange coin?" You know, they'll say they compare it to BNB and maybe the KCS, the KuCoin token, and from the research that I've done, it seems, and I always answer it, well, it's so much more. I know you do have plans to make your own blockchain. And based off of what Andre said in his AMA, it looks like, because people are asking these redundant questions, that you guys are either leaning towards a proof of stake consensus or even hash graph, perhaps. So I'd like to hear about that. And another question in crypto always is when they hear proof of stake, or I forgot the name, in your white paper, there was something that certainly seemed like a master node or a node component. Do you and I know this is down the road, so a lot of these decisions may not have been made yet, or you're leaving yourself the ability to pivot. But do you have any sort of inkling of what direction you'll be heading, and also what's the purpose of having the Qash token on its own blockchain?
Yeah. So Cash token is a utility token, right? And our business model is not only connecting all these global exchanges, we're actually packaging our own platform and white labeling it, right? So there's an element of working with other global exchanges and tapping into our liquidity, and we also connecting their liquidity. We're packaging our liquid platform into partners in every region, from Latin America to, like, for example, Gibraltar is a good example, right? Gibraltar blockchain exchange is essentially our platform.
Right.
That's our white label, right? So we're going to do that in Latin America. We're going to do that in like the Middle East. We're going to do it in Africa. We're going to do that in every large continent and geography,
Mm.
right? And the people who white label our platform, the Cash token will be embedded. It will be a standard token there, and people can use that as for payments, right? So just on our liquid platform
That's really important, by
itself,
the way.
our Cash token will be that utility token that people can use for to pay for fees, use for collateral, use for discounts, and many other things. So that's to me, that's, for example, it's not even similar to Binance and BNB, because Binance wants to be their one exchange where you can use that for their fees. But we want to make sure that my aspiration is everywhere in the world there needs to be local exchanges that tap into the global liquidity. So we have a partner that can scale that platform with our Cash token embedded to all these partners, right? So it's going to be the next 2 to 3 years are going to be quite exciting, because we're going to really scale our white label solution into all these markets, right? So that's one, and that in itself will expand the utility of the Cash token, which will bring up the value, right? The second element is we are a centralized exchange, right? And this is it's I have a little bit of conflicting even inside, because I believe in decentralized, distributed ecosystem, right? That said, when you touch money, when you touch store of value, when you touch currency, governments and states will not let you go, right? You cannot be a pure decentralized exchange. You cannot. Even if you were the founder of Napster, they will come and get you if you allow that peer to peer to just be like a non-regulated, right? It happened in Pirate Bay, it happened in Napster, it happened in all of these peer to peer services, and especially if you're going to touch fiat store of value. So there needs to be a hybrid. There needs to be a combination of, it could be distributed, but it needs to have certain master nodes or control, because the government will make sure that they want you to segregate customers' assets. They want to make sure that you have these custodial services, right? Because if something happens, they'll come and get you. You just can't say, hey, I have a decentralized exchange, so I have no control, so hallelujah. You'll go to jail. They'll come and get you. So how I look at it is as an exchange. And when you look at existing financial services, like even in when you stock exchanges, the commodity exchanges, it's actually consolidating, right? So it's consolidating for just one single reason, is it's all about performance and latency, right? So you need to be an exchange that can cope with high frequency traders, cope with these hedge funds and institutional investors. If you cannot stay up to innovation, as an exchange, you're going to go out of business. So that's why Euronext and all these, they're all consolidating and they're migrating into the next gen exchanges. And it's even becoming much more centralized because you cannot have latency, because there are going to be hedge funds who will take advantage of that, right? So inherently, when you are a decentralized exchange where you have these nodes, the latency between these nodes could be a killer, right? So if you only want to trade, for example, I want to trade my Bitcoin to Ethereum with an atomic swap, that's fine, right? But if you want to do like tens of thousands of transactions every minute, and you want to have an automated investment strategy, you cannot do that on a decentralized exchange, right? So, but that said, we're trying to find that right combination, right, where it's distributed, but there's a certain amount of control. And when we looked at the existing blockchain or ledger ecosystem, there was no blockchain that we can potentially migrate our own services onto. Like obviously the Bitcoin blockchain is not made for DApps or smart contract, right? And even with all the fork and these large block like Bitcoin Cash, it's still not used for, it cannot be used for financial services, right? And then you look at, for example, Ethereum, which is a generic blockchain for smart contract. It's good for like many services, but if for high frequency, high performance, low latency services, it's not built for it, right? Like it doesn't even support these native financial programming languages. So when you look at that, there's actually no blockchain that is built for that, right? So that's where when you look at our team, our engineers, our C-level, our CTO, and all those, they all come from Wall Street and banking industry, right? So looking at the requirements, we didn't want to like reinvent the wheel, right? But when we looked at it, there was no blockchain or distributed ledger that we thought we could put our entire platform on and maintain that performance and latency. So that's what kind of spurred our need for a cash chain, right? It's probably not going to be a blockchain, and it's probably going to have an element of hash graph into it as well. So we're looking at all these. We don't want to be like, we're not in the world of academia, right? So it doesn't have to be like a new, completely different thing that needs a lot of behavioral changes. We're looking at a chain that is like getting the good elements of all these other ones and combining it together in a commercial level, right? So we don't want this to be an academic project. We want this to be a commercial grade where any fintech company that wants to launch a service can use a cloud service and a blockchain or a distributed ledger and start launching their services from day one. And that's going to be our cash chain. And the token, the native token that's going to be part of that is going to be the Qash token.
Really exciting stuff. So I've had my crack at you with my questions, and I think the audience is ready to start asking as well. So if you guys have any questions for Mike, I will read them, and now would be the time. Now nobody has questions.
So by the way, this is a Japanese yukata. It's not a kimono. It's something when you go to like the hot springs you wear. So maybe people might be curious why you're wearing a robe and why I'm wearing a yukata. Right?
This is a polo. This is an American brand, and I wear it to get into my comfort zone. In the mornings, I do a live stream session. And just one day I just came on with the robe and people seem to like it. This is what I'm wearing in around this time of the day, almost every day, sitting in front of my computer. And it's kind of like a statement where I used to work in corporate healthcare. And now this is kind of like the opposite business that I'm in. And I enjoy being in my home, in my comfort zone, but interacting and doing business with people all over the world from in my comfort zone. So it's just something that I wear. But yeah, here comes some questions. Okay,
All right.
Sean Gray, this is a good question. What are the main threats to the company in the coming years?
So let's what keeps me up at night is always security. It's always security.
This is because you were around when
So
Mount Gox happened, right?
like, well, Mt. Gox happened, CoinCheck happened, like Binance was hacked, Bitstamp was hacked before, Bitfinex has been hacked multiple times, right? So, and that said, people tend to forget that. Then why don't you do it like a decentralized exchange is better, where I manage my own keys, right? You will be much better off having someone like us manage your private keys. And let me just give you some data points. Every single day, we have maybe 300 to 500 requests to change their password because people forget their password, right? So I'm not saying why people forget their password or why they forget their credentials, but if you lose your keys and the passwords or the hard drive, your tokens are gone. When you look at Bitcoin, over 20% of all like Bitcoins that is in circulation is actually Satoshi coin. Do you know what a Satoshi coin is? The Satoshi coin is a Bitcoin that's supposed to be in circulation but hasn't changed, which means you lost it in your hard drive or you lost your password or credentials. So actually, when you look at it from that perspective, we think about security every day. It's probably safer for someone to put their keys or their asset or their tokens with us than having yourself to manage your own, right? So that's the biggest threat that it keeps me up at night. And the second one is around banking, so regulation and banking relationships, right? So there's a reason why there's crypto only exchanges. They all announce or aspire to have a fiat element, but I think they're underestimating, right? So even a regulated exchange like us have difficulty opening bank accounts globally, right? And that's why there's crypto only exchanges. But they need a fiat element, and that's why there's a big trend towards stable coins like USD Tether, like these fractional tokens, or these now there's these algorithmically stable tokens as well. And that's because these crypto only exchanges need some kind of a pegged or secure like a fiat characteristic token so that they can trade with, or when the market is like tanking, they want to park that your assets not in crypto but in something that's pegged not with other crypto tokens but with the US dollar or something like that. Right? So I look at it those two: security and then banking and regulation.
Okay. Mike DeJagger, question. When will Qash be listed on more mainstream exchanges like Binance and KuCoin? And I guess he's asking, do you anticipate Qash to be listed on other cryptocurrency exchanges in the future?
Yeah, so actually we have not put a conscious effort on doing business development or marketing our Qash token to other exchanges. If we were to do it, we will want to do it with other regulated exchanges, right? Like the ones in the US, like the ones in Europe. The offshore ones, there's a certain amount of I'm not sure if Binance is an exchange that is credible enough. Like, I'm just being very honest with the audience. I mean,
So
nothing
maybe
against.
Cash on Coinbase, perhaps? I know that Coinbase was talking about ERC20 tokens.
Yeah. So for example, like the US ones, they don't even list Litecoin. They don't even list Ripple, right? So when the time comes, I think our tokens will be one of the preferred tokens that are listed in other exchanges. But I don't want our token to be listed in these um, wild west exchanges where they don't disclose who they are, or where it's an unregulated high counterparty risk exchanges.
Somebody asked a question earlier, and I'm sorry I can't give you credit because I don't remember the name and I don't want to find it. But they wanted to know if you had any institutional American investors piloting or working with Liquid CoinX. And they also wanted to know because there has been some talk of JPM, JP Morgan, or actually, I think it was Goldman also, ties to Goldman, or any of these institutions reaching out to you or their discussions occurring.
We continue to talk to them,
You do.
right? So compared to 4 years ago when I started Quoine, um, despite the recent correction in price and the hacks and the incidents that are happening on other exchanges, the interest from mainstream finance is just unbelievable. So we continue to talk with the not JPM, but the other financial institution, the global financial institution that you mentioned. We continue to talk, right, on prime brokerage side, on the FX side, and they're very keen. We're also talking directly with institutional investors who want to do OTC trading or block trading, right? And like, for example, last October, November, we would get these large OTC orders, which were like 30 million, 50 million, and we would be like blown away when it was 100 million. And these people don't want to use global order books or exchanges to procure these large trades. They will go to OTCs, miners, to do these block trades. But it was 20 million, 30 million, 50 million last October. But this February, we had this large, we couldn't fill it, we couldn't work it, but we had one single order of $1 billion worth of Bitcoin.
Wow.
Yeah, one single order. And we couldn't even chop it up, we couldn't do it. So obviously it never happened. But the amount of institutional investors who want to include cryptocurrency in their portfolio as an asset class is growing. And when they reach out directly to us, obviously they work with these large global banks on other asset classes, so they will start reaching out as well. So within the next 12 to 24 months, there's going to be a big migration of institutional investors and Wall Street coming into this asset class. And that's why we believe we're at the intersection of ideology-driven, free world, decentralized people and mainstream finance. We're kind of in between, right? So we believe that we can be that bridge where right now the entire crypto market cap is what, 350 billion, 400 billion?
A little less these days. In that 300 range.
Is it 300 range now?
Yeah.
This could be 30 trillion, or this could be much more when mainstream finance comes in, right? So we believe with our liquid platform and with our pedigree of most of our people working at these Wall Street financial global institutions, we can be that bridge between mainstream finance and the early crypto people.
Will Liquid feature instant deposits like Coinbase or GDAX has in the future?
On the fiat side or on the
fiat side? So some exchanges have a waiting period where you make the purchase, but the tokens, the Bitcoin won't arrive in your wallet for 5 business days or something like that. But recently, Coinbase introduced even purchasing through your bank, you can make an instant purchase.
Well, so we already do on the Japanese bank side where there's an API that we can work with. We do instant deposit.
They already do it,
but we don't do instant buy. We allow the customer to decide when they want to buy Bitcoin or crypto, but for the Japanese yen, for our Japanese customers, we do instant deposit, which will be reflected in their customer accounts immediately. We
Um,
hope we can do that with all the global banks as well.
I see. Uh, the cash tokens, once they are used for services on the platform, such as listing ICOs or paying fees, what's the plan to redistribute the tokens into the ecosystem? Is there a token burn? What will happen to those tokens once they're received by Liquid?
Yeah, so then we will redistribute or sell it on like our exchanges as well. We will not burn, because if you burn your token, that will be deemed as security.
Mm.
When like your users or your listeners, when they come across a white paper that says we will burn our tokens when people use it on our platform, that will be, in most jurisdiction, will be deemed as a security, because you are actually intentionally setting rules to increase the value of your token. So that will be deemed as security in certain jurisdictions. So we don't do that. The ones that are circulation should stay in circulation. The value should go up if the token utility goes up. It should not go up because of the scarcity, like a share buyback, right? Like if you do something like a token buyback or burn it, that's similar to a share buyback that public companies do, and that's a big no-no.
All right, so I think we've really covered a lot. I had a blast, and I really, even I learned more about the platform and the token that I, didn't understand fully. So I really appreciate your time. Just, I'd like to hear. You did mention that you see cryptocurrency is going to exceed, where we're at right now. We're going to be 20-30 trillion dollar market cap once mainstream investors start to and institutions start to get involved. Where do you see us, or Bitcoin itself, finishing up by the end of the year in 2018?
If I knew that, I would be. I will. But that said, that's a good question. I would say with the recent correction in price, with all these challenges around securities and hack, which will never go away. Like, famously, Bill Gates said in 2004 that within 2 years, spams will go away with technology. Spam is like, there's much more sophisticated spams than 12, 13 years ago, right? So security will always be an issue. It's an incurable disease like cancer, right? But despite that, and despite hacks, I would say right now that it's a correction period of 6 months. After that, I think it will start going up again, right? Because the fundamentals of, for example, Bitcoin hasn't changed. It's not like the 21 million limit has gone up. It's not like there's some kind of deterrent or something hyper negative that will take the entire crypto or Bitcoin down, right? So the fundamental has not really changed at all. And when you look at the millennials and the younger generation, cryptocurrency is much more familiar to them than equities or commodities or any of those things. You can just buy it on your smartphone. You can give it to your friend. You can send it to your relative. You can send it across the globe for free, right? So it's a much better version of gold. The utility value is going to go up. So I would say, hey, from today's prices, anywhere from 3 to 5x by end of the year.
Mm. All right.
That's how I look at it. And
I'm in
you know
alignment with
what?
that. I think that's about right too. That's where I see it, in that range. It's going to be almost impossible to predict. And you know what? Do you mind if I ask you one more
Well,
question? Because something just came into my head that
yeah, go
we've
ahead.
been discussing a lot. There's been a lot of fear that, being that we haven't had a global economic crisis in some time. I think it was 2008 was the last time,
Yeah,
and people, with the trade wars between America and China, and the tariffs, that there is some fear in the market, and
yeah,
people always want to there's a curiosity. What happens if global economically we have a big crash? Would that affect crypto? Some people will contest that. They think the money will go into crypto. The majority would think that, if the stock market were to go down, crypto is going to go down as well with it. But that being said, I remember there have been times of uncertainty in the world. So, for instance, when America and North Korea really ratcheted up the language as far as what they were going to do to each other. This was, I believe, October, or with Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump threatening nuclear war. All of a sudden you saw Japan and South Korea to start to really buy more and more Bitcoin. So what do you think Bitcoin is becoming a hedge against uncertainty in the world, or do you think it's something that will just like any other investment or asset class, will take a major hit if things were to go south?
That's a good question. If I was like a chief economist, I can have some data and theory to back up what my statement. But I look at, if there's a real global financial crisis, every asset will go down regardless. But the first one that will come back up will be Bitcoin and crypto. It's a safe haven. It's not governed by one central government or entity, right? So when you look at all other asset classes, whether if it's stocks or fiat or anything, it's like, for example, when you look at fiat currency, especially in a downward market, they print more money, right? So it's the single largest, again, I'm not anti-government at all, but it's the single
Sure,
most
you're not, Mike.
manipulated currency in the world are these fiat, because the central government can just continue to print, right? So especially in a down market where there's an economic crisis, they will print money to bring up the circulation and increase velocity so that the economy comes back. What that does compared to like a Bitcoin that has limited circulation, it will bring up the value of crypto that much more when your other currency is printing more during that time. So obviously when there's a catastrophe or a global crisis, every asset will go down first. But the first one that will come back up will be crypto. I have no doubt about it.
Very interesting.
And even if there's not a crisis, right, I cannot predict what the price of Bitcoin or crypto will be end of the year. But I know in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, it's going to be at least 100x. That's how I look at it. Right? Short term, I don't know. Long term, it's here to stay, and I think it's one of the most safer bets that someone can do.
All right. Last question.
Oh.
Qash token. Any price prediction by the end of the year?
Oh my goodness! I get in so much trouble. By the way, as a token issuer, if you give like those kind of a prediction, you can get in trouble.
Okay, so
not only from your customers, but from regulators.
Right.
Where then they'll feel like, hey, are you going to pump up your token and prices and all these things? But I would say with our liquid platform, with the increase of utility, it has so much potential.
I agree.
Right? And by the end of the year, we will be announcing our Qash chain and the ecosystem around it. So I'm not going to say it's going to be 3x, 5x, or 10x.
You have said it would be a top 5 token in the past.
Yes, I still have no doubt that it will be. We're one of the few pro-regulation tokens that are out there in the world. And I think there's going to be a big push towards pro-regulation tokens. And we will be one of the few out there. So I continue to believe that we will be in the top 3 or 5 crypto tokens in the world in the next 3 to 5 years last October. So I won't change that.
All right. Well, Mike, it's really been an honor and a pleasure. I really enjoyed this, and I think the audience did too. Looking forward to hear the updates from you guys, and I'll be watching very closely. Had a great time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I would love to meet everybody in Japan.
Favorite sushi?
I want you to visit Japan as well.
I would love to visit Japan. It's on my bucket list. I will definitely be coming out there. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great morning or evening. And make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that like button, please. Take care, everybody.